Welcome to Curious with Josh Peck. Start the show. The Curious podcast is brought to you by me. Just kidding. This podcast is brought to you by just me. It's just fun to say stuff sometimes. Welcome back to the Curious podcast. How is everyone? Hope you've had an incredible week, an incredible life. Really, hope you're just flourishing and thriving in ways you could have never imagined, and maybe also in ways that you have imagined. Because sometimes it's nice to fulfill the things you've thought about, or if you're Canadian, about. What's going on in the world? France just won the World Cup. Congrats, France. I extend to you the French version of Mazel Tov, whatever that is. Magnifique. Congratulations. I don't have a great French accent. Anyway, good for you guys. Well done. What else? What else is going on? I'm going on a trip. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm recording this on Sunday, so then I'll edit it in tomorrow, and then the pod will go up Tuesday. But anyway, I'm going on a trip Monday, going to the East Coast. Going to be in Boston, going to be in New York. A lot of anticipation. I'm not the traveler that other people are. What can I say? Very nervous, very in fear, very projecting. Here's the thing, guys. I don't like to be uncomfortable. And look, the truth is, I got a little bit of scratch. You know what I mean? I work hard. We're going to fly nice. We're going to stay at a nice enough hotel. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm not staying at a hostel. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, I'm not fucking 19 going on a teen tour backpacking through, some random, I'm sure, beautiful country. No, I'm going to do it up nice. I am a Marriott Rewards member, okay? You want to talk about being a grown-up, being an adult? Yeah, I accrue many points, and I like a good reward. But nevertheless, even though it will be as comfortable as possible, and I'm quite lucky. Look, don't send me the tweets and the texts of how lucky you are to be. I know I am very, very lucky to be traveling. Not everyone has the means, the opportunity, and yet my neurotic, self-centered mind likes to go into quite the tizzy when I've disrupted its routine. When I've thrown a wrench in the plan. Doesn't love it, I anticipate the airport, and will we get there on time, and will someone have planted some sort of weapon on me so that when I go through TSA, all of a sudden I'm detained, indefinitely. I remember one time I was going through TSA, and I don't know what happened, but they swabbed my hands, and I set the alarm off. And I'm pretty sure that swab sees if you've been making a bomb or something. And I think like my hair gel had some organic material in it that is, probably a brother or sister of TNT. And so friggin' they detained me. I remember that it set that alarm off, and they looked at me like, oh no. Because I think they kind of knew. I don't know if they, like recognized me. That's a douchey statement. But I don't know if they kind of like knew who I was, or they just sized me up real quick and was like, this guy's not trying to bring any terror to our planes. But so they knew that I wasn't like an immediate threat, and yet they were like, well, we need to now go through a procedure. And I got brought into a scary ass room, and all I'm worried about, of course, I'm like, am I going to miss my flight? Is this going to take a while? I mean, luckily in those situations, I'm not the guy. I'm not the one who's going to like erupt and make it all about me and, just scream out at the injustice. I get that there's a protocol. I understand they want to keep us safe. I understand that, eventually in life it stops being why me and it becomes why not me. Fucking write that down. You know what I mean? Put that in your journal or your diary, or I don't know where you write things, your iPhone notes. Listen, I'm not judging. Just commit it to memory. Because these are the treasures. These are the gems of phrases that I have picked up over my years. 31 of them. You know what I mean? I listen. I keep my ears open for some of those spiritual, treasure gem treasures. That's what I do. because I fucking need it. I need a little bit of, reassurance throughout the day. I need to know from other people that sometimes life, you know, while hard and challenging at times, is worth experiencing. Because sometimes, and I know you're the same out there, and I don't mean to project, but here we go. Sometimes you're like, man, this is a crazy ass world, and what's it all about? What's it for? Why do it? You know what I mean? Because in 60 years, all new people. I don't mean to be a downer when I say that. That eventually we're all gonna die and probably not be remembered. This got morbid, but go with me here. You know what I mean? I hope that it is, that not only does it enlighten you, but it empowers you to know that you are entitled to live your full life, and that it's all good, because it's always been good, and it's always gonna be good. You know what I mean? And what you do today might not affect the course of history, and that's okay too, because this is just an experience. None of us are that important. I'm not talking to you, Jay-Z and Beyonce. We all know you guys are important, but us over here making podcasts for the people, and the people who listen to podcasts, which I am one of, we are important to the people that we are important to, and that is enough. Okay? Good old Uncle Josh Peck is here to tell you that you are enough. And you can go spend, thousands a year with some psychotherapist to help you get through. God knows that I've seen one for 15 plus years who I love. Shout out my doctor. I'm not going to give out his name because I know there's some weirdos out here that'll try to contact him. But he's just a beauty and I love him. But, when it boils down, when we really get down to the nitty gritty, if I had to distill our 15-year experience with each other down to one, thing, I would say it's, Josh, you are enough. As you are enough. Because it's got to be that. Because if it's anything else, it's like it can't be like you are enough, but if you climbed Mount Everest with, 3 toddlers on your back, then you will really be enough. It's never going to be that. You know what I mean? It's always going to be arbitrary. It's always going to be, I don't know if arbitrary is the right word, but there's never going to be a clear set path. You have to accept the nuance, the vagueness of it all. That's not a word either, but just go with me here. You guys get it. It's not set in stone. Be the water, not the rock. What am I saying at this point? I don't know. You guys get it. I believe you get it. I have to believe you get it at this point, because otherwise, what's it all worth? Anyway, I'm going to New York. I'm going to be in the East Coast. It should be nice. I'll be there for a wedding, which is lovely. I had a wedding, and it gave me a whole new appreciation for weddings because, you're single, and most of your life as a man, and I'm only speaking for myself, but you fucking feel like weddings are bullshit and a big waste of money, and and like this weird colloquialism, like this tradition that we all partake in and yet know in the back of our head it's like kind of a waste of time, or we're just doing it for our wives or what have you. And then how wrong I was. How wrong I was. Because my wife gave me an incredible, beautiful wedding, gave us, but my brother gave me the best advice before, and he's got like a thick Boston accent, and he gave me the best advice when I told him that I was getting engaged, and he said, Josh, I'm happy for you. Now, here's all you need to remember. It's not your fucking day. So you give her whatever she wants, and you just stand back and let her be happy. And it was the best advice ever, because it's exactly what I did. I didn't get involved in the details, in the rigmarole, in the nitty gritty. I just let her have her day, and she made it unbelievable. Let me tell you, you should have been there. A wedding like this, come on, small, intimate, outdoors, beautiful, you know? Jesus, that's my phone. We had three different types of protein. Jesus, God, this is fucking unprofessional. We had three different types of protein. It was unbelievable. We had a steak, a salmon, and we didn't have a chicken, but there was a pasta. Trust me. You know, and it revealed to me how beautiful a wedding is and how incredible it is to get married in front of your family members and the people who love you most. And to make that bond, that dedication, that agreement in front of God or whatever you believe in, and the people that you love, and in front of each other, and saying like, you know what, I'm going to give this all I got. And let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice. Let's buy property together, make some kids, be, semi-annoyed with each other many days, but also love the shit out of each other. And I'm so glad I had that experience. And I can't believe this tirade has not stopped yet, but there's like a catharsis going on here. I feel great about it. I hope this is okay. And if you guys don't like it, well, what am I going to tell you? You knew what you were signing up for. You know who I am. Anyway, today's episode, Vincent Donofrio, an acting god, a mensch of a man, just a good person. I feel like for me, he's one of those people who I feel like we're closer than we really are. Maybe it's just because of the effect he's had on my life and how much I respect and appreciate him. And also he turned me on to his acting teacher, a woman named Sharon Wants, who's changed my life. And I'm just an incredible fan because he's the real deal. He's an actor's actor. He's all about the work and not the bullshit. And that's what it's all about. And that's what turns me on about acting and has made me want to do it since I was 11 years old. So it was so lovely and nice of him to spend the hour with me and let me pick his brain. And I hope you guys enjoy it because it was really special for me, and I hope it's special for you. Enjoy my friend Vincent Donofrio.
My buddy Dax does one too.
I know, he just started.
Armchair, yeah.
I know, he's killing it.
Yeah.
It's like in the top 10 podcasts.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's had some good guests.
Yeah.
I mean, when you can get, Katie Couric and
Right.
his wife and Ashton Kutcher for your first couple, it's not bad.
It helps, yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
You remember the first time we met?
Was it at my house or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had, I think you had bid on like a school fundraiser dinner.
And we had a cook at the house.
Not just a cook, the head chef from Rayo's in New York.
Right.
Like, I'm talking the greatest bowl of pasta maybe I ever had.
Yeah, it was really good.
It wasn't messing around.
No. Yeah, no, I remember. Yeah.
You're from Brooklyn?
I was born in Bensonhurst, yeah, Brooklyn, yeah. But I was raised there and in Florida.
Okay.
I went to school mostly in Florida.
Right.
And then came back to New York right after high school to study acting.
Right.
But I was close to my grandfather, and so I spent like every summer. I mean, literally every summer in Brooklyn with my grandfather, and I had I had regular friends there and stuff.
And your grandfather's Italian?
Yeah, everybody's Italian.
And that's where the tribe of people in Bensonhurst, right? I mean, it was all Italians then.
That area was Jewish and Italian at the time, and there was a Polish section, and yeah.
And was it? I mean, it's not necessarily the most peaceful area. I mean, it was tough then, right?
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, it was a little crazy. The thing about that's different from now and then is that if you did something wrong, which we did a lot of, like because we were, delinquents and we didn't have any, we were poor too.
Yeah, knuckleheads.
Yeah. The thing is that the cops would bring you home rather than arrest you. Right. Because they knew that if they brought you home, you were going to get in enough trouble, But but we're not talking about like armed robbery and stuff like that. We're talking about like stealing a car or stuff like that. You wouldn't get arrested. You would get brought to your house and say, this dope was caught in a car.
Petty
It wasn't
offense.
his.
Because the whooping you were going to get from
Yeah.
whoever was going to be just as bad.
Yeah.
And do you ever go back to Bensonhurst like now? Because I feel like it's the last of the gentrified section of Brooklyn. Like it's still not completely modernized.
They sold my grandfather's house. My dad and his sister sold my grandfather's house after he died. And so there hasn't been a lot of reason to go over there, especially 18th Avenue and 65th Street. It's such a specific area. And in my mind, it's very specific because it's my grandfather was the only thing that brought me there.
Right.
So I don't go back. But my grandfather was all over the city. He started a drapery company called General Drapery, which was on 16th off of 6th Avenue, and that's where I worked when I first moved to New York, to delivering and hanging drapes for him and stuff. Yeah.
And my grandfather owned a schmata factory in Jersey.
Oh, okay.
So old, but I feel like that's what most of our grandparents did on the East Coast in the 40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah, yeah.
And so how old were you when you moved to Florida?
I guess what happened was my parents got divorced when I was 9. My father took us to Florida. We were all born in New York, and after my birth, we went to Florida. And then my parents got divorced when I was like 8 or 9 or something like that, and we moved to Hawaii because my mother was raised in Hawaii.
Wow.
Yeah, because her family went from Italy to New York to Hawaii, and my grandfather opened a chain of Italian restaurants in Honolulu.
Still around?
I don't think so. No, they were called Rocco's. They were. He was the first Italian and fried chicken.
I love it.
There at the time, yeah.
Could you imagine? He was like, "What do they miss in Hawaii?"
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I know what they need.
Yeah.
Right.
And my dad worked. My dad was in the Air Force, and my mom was a waitress, and that's how they met. She was a waitress at my grandfather's restaurant, and that's how my dad and my mom met.
And
But then I went to elementary school in Hawaii for a little while, and then when my mom got back on her feet after the divorce and stuff, she moved us back down to Florida because we still had the house there, and I lived there, and I had my mom remarried to my stepdad, who was a great guy. He passed away, but he was a fantastic man, and he basically cleaned my act up. He was he was a firefighter. He was very, very big in my life, this guy. And I gained another sister and an older brother, and I grew up with them in Florida. But still, every summer, it was New York.
in South Florida?
In Hialeah, yeah.
And what part?
Which is near Miami.
So, because I lived in Boca for a bit, and
Yeah.
it's interesting when you think about Florida. It's like truly different factions, right?
Yeah.
Because South tends to be, insane Cuban influence, left leaning. There's such an embrace of like every type of culture there, and then there's sort of mid Florida, which is Orlando, which unless you're going to Disneyland, why are you there?
Right.
And then North Florida, which is like the bottom of the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
So, growing up for you in South Florida, what was it like? What were your influences like? What was it?
Very Cuban and very black, and and country. It was a mix of country western and soul and Cuban music and Cuban food and soul food and boring old white food. White people food, and being and having a lot of and having an Italian mother who cooked Italian food. So it was a mix of things. And I had a gang of friends from Florida, and we used to get up to no good there and stuff. And it was my influences were not academic in any way. They were more based on the street, and I was
In what way? do you want to say?
Well,
Just running around.
It's just that we used to get up to we would just get up to no good. We were constantly fighting and constantly, constantly getting beat up and constantly fighting back and constantly beating other people up. And, there's a lot of those kids didn't survive. A lot of those kids did stupid things and, ended up dying, from back then. They were just idiots,
And
basically killed themselves with their stupidity.
And not to project in any way, but was it just sort of the kids that you ran with and a bit of a victim of circumstance? Or did you ever realize later on you were like, I was probably trying to fill this part of me, this hole inside? Or
Well, my mom, before we got married, before my mom got married, that's when all of my stuff started, because my mom had to work constantly to support. She had 3 kids. I had 2 older sisters and me, so she had to support the 3 of us. So she was constantly working, like all the time, a waitress. So we were left to our own, and so there was no. She didn't push us towards education, or, in fact, nobody in our family was pushed towards any education. We come from a very blue collar, and. So what happens when you're not pushed towards education? You try to learn in other ways.
Other trades.
Yeah, other trades, and you end up on the street, and you end up, being adventurous because you're not reading books. You're doing adventurous things. Yeah.
was there a part of you, because I definitely had that time in which I was sort of sowing my wild oats, which was weird because I was also on a kids television show at the time, so I didn't quite have the anonymity of youth.
Right.
But I found, and I imagine that all kids had this, but I found that I was of a particular kind where I romanticized Hunter S. Thompson and, kooks and outliers. And, I could say like people like Burroughs and Ginsberg, but I didn't read that shit then.
Yeah.
I just liked sort of counterculture anti-heroes.
Yeah.
Did you have any of that? Or
No, we didn't. But there were factions of our group that were actually, underground and counterculture, but not because they were poets or anything, but they were the people that the poets wrote about, and the situations that they wrote about. That was the influence of that, the kind of nastiness and, art was something that I thought, I only thought in terms of movies,
right.
As far as anything artistic, and I didn't call it art. I just called them movies.
And what did you watch? Did you love movies and television growing up? What did you love?
I loved going to the movies. I watched a lot of movies, all kinds of movies. My dad used to take me to drive-ins and see movies that were like way above my head and way beyond what I should have been watching at a young age, but at times also very influential, like seeing French films and Italian films when I was a kid, and I saw a lot of cinema. Mostly American movies, but not like kids movies.
Like, were you watching?
Like Serpico, French Connection.
Oh yeah, come on.
Yeah, all the James Bond movies.
And you just ate it up.
Yeah, all even Cassavetes films. All that stuff. Yeah.
And was there a thought that crossed your mind early on in your teens and whatnot that you would ever be doing this? Like, did
No.
you had no idea?
No.
Was there anyone artistic in your family?
My dad was involved in community theaters. Always.
In what way? Acting?
Acting, directing, building sets, and so I used to do that stuff with him. Yeah.
And as a trade, he did it, or he just
No, he liked
a hobby?
as a hobby. Yeah. Yeah. So everywhere he went, he belonged to a theater group.
Mm.
Yeah.
And not to go too like Freudian on this, but that's me. I wonder, Howard Stern has this great quote about how his father was a radio engineer.
Yeah.
So he's like, of course I was on the radio because to me it was the way to be heard by my
Yeah.
dad. Was
Yeah.
there any of that for you?
I think so. I think it's always that. I think, the whole thing with fathers is odd for all of us. I think you want your father to take notice of you, and then when he does, you want to kill him.
Right.
Yeah, that's what all sons want to do. And I think that we all want to kill our fathers, and so it's. But first, you have to be noticed. Yeah. So for sure, it was that. I mean, I ran lights. He did Streetcar. I ran lights during Streetcar for his performance, and I didn't run lights, but I did the lights, and I did sound for View from the Bridge, and he used to do this play, The Rainmaker, a lot, over and over again. Like whenever he would go to a new place, they would do Rainmaker, and he would always play the lead character in it and stuff. That was like his favorite part. But he wasn't a good guy. He was sleeping around, and he was awful. He's an awful guy.
Sure.
But I didn't know it at the time. So I was just building sets, and I learned how to, how to build a set and run lights and run music and understand the structure of a play and understand how plays are written, and it's a different when you approach. I'm sure you know this. I'm sure many actors know this. Is that when you approach theater from a tech point of view, it brings you in a very interesting way because you come. It's sort of like coming from the floorboards up rather than walking onto the floorboards. You're sort of you build the floorboards first.
Right.
And it's a different approach. And then eventually, if you do end up acting, you came from building what you're standing on. It's like your foundation. You sort of built it for yourself. It's an interesting approach. I've talked to other actors and actresses that started as techies when they were kids, and rather than acting through high school, I didn't do any of that.
Right.
But I did, in fact, build sets at my dad's community theaters, and he did them in Florida, he did them in Colorado, he did them here and there and everywhere, And yeah. So I think he has a lot to do with why I'm an actor. But then you realize one day, well, what was I going to do if I didn't do this? Like,
what would you have done?
well, that's
Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, I mean, as much as anybody else does. I mean,
were you good at anything else?
I'm a natural artist. I can draw. I've never taken a class or anything, but I can just.
So
I have
maybe
a
you would
natural
have
ability.
figured something out that way.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Or I love to teach, so it's like maybe I would have been a teacher, an art teacher, or something like that. Probably something like that. If I would have had the nerve, if I would have gotten up enough nerve to actually go into a school and get a degree, But I was very antisocial for many years of my life, and so that would have been a tough thing for me to do.
Do you think, it's funny to what you were saying before about seeing sort of how the sausage is made and understanding it from the floorboards up, like even something as simple as the casting process, when you spend your life as an actor and you're there sort of singing for your supper.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get a part and then you're on the other side of it where you're then chemistry reading other actors who are going to play your spouse or a parent or a brother or something. And it's so revealing for me in the few times that I've had that experience to see how impersonal it truly can be. Because for me, I'd go in and have weeks of prep and it feels like it goes by in a flash, and God, it's all so personal. But then being on the other side, it just might be like, he was fine. He just wasn't right. And as quickly as they come in, they leave your head and they're not thinking about you, but God knows I'm thinking about myself as I hang my head on my way to my hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole thing for me has been a trip because the thing, my friends, the people that are close to me, actors and actresses that know me super well and have done for a long time, they are definitely, I am in awe of them in many ways because they have this ability to have a career, which is such a big deal to be able to know how to do it. Like, they know how to have a fucking career.
Sustain.
I have no idea how to have a career still. As I'm going to be, I'm 58. I'll be 58.
But you're the goal. I mean, to like, I imagine whatever you're saying about your friends, I can only speak for myself. I look at you and I go, but you're the definition of that, knowing how to have a career, how to sustain, how to do good work for a long period of time.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't wish my career on anybody.
Why?
I would want them to have a much more interesting career than mine. Like, for sure. Not that I don't think mine is interesting.
Of course.
Because I've done some interesting things I should say I've done things that have interested me. And that's, but, like, for instance, the Gene Siskel Foundation wanted to give Ethan Hawke an award the other night. So, and I'm friends of Robert and Susan Downey, and they asked me, and they're on the board there, so they asked me to, and they know that Ethan and I are very close, and so they asked me to interview him. So I did an hour interview like this.
Wow.
But we did it in these comfy chairs with bourbon in front of like 500 people.
I knew I forgot the bourbon. Shit.
In front of like 500 people, right? And so, I don't get nervous, but he said something during the thing. He said that it's interesting to hear a friend who really knows you, not just a peer, but a friend. He said, Vincent's temperature never changes. Like he can move in and out of a part, in and out of a situation, and his temperature never changes. Whereas we'll stand next to each other, and I'm up like at 107 fever before we go on the stage.
Right.
And even if what we have to do is crazy, and Vincent's temperature is always the same. And when he walks out, so I'm listening to him. He walks out and he does the fucking thing. And I'm listening to him say this, and I'm thinking, I feel so like in awe of him.
Really?
Yeah, because he's a treasure. Like, he is an artist through and through. And he's a novelist, a painter, a singer, a songwriter, a fucking director,
Totally.
a writer. I mean, the guy is like a poet.
Yeah, it does it all.
Like a fucking poet.
Creator, yeah.
Yeah, man. And, some actors are bulldozers, some are tanks, some actresses are diamonds, crystals, some are just sledgehammers, and abysses, like black holes. Ethan's a poet. That's what he is. And so to do this the other night, where we just had this real conversation about our lives and about his career, it's interesting that nobody's ever said that to me, that my temperature never changes. But, it's something that I learned because of method acting, and it didn't help me be more social. In
Right.
fact, worked against that. And so it's all kind of tied together for me, where I've dedicated myself to method acting, and I've never, up until when I had my third child. I've been married for 21 years now.
Right.
It's awesome. And
I'm 1 year in.
oh, nice.
I'm a fan. Actually, my anniversary is on Sunday.
Nice.
So.
And you met my wife.
Yeah, so lovely.
Yeah, she's so lovely. And she's, the best thing that ever happened to me. And so only now have I started to understand what being social is, even in this late stage of my life. And I enjoy it very much. But it wasn't something that I could have ever done before that. And I think that, a guy like Ethan, he because his temperature changes from before he's acting to when he's acting, he knows, he's not in all the time. He is, he can
Turn it on and off.
He sees a career. He has
Right.
a career in mind, and it's yeah, it's different than anybody else's, but he has it in his mind. He knows what he wants, and he knows that he has to do it. And, just like we do, we know we have to do it too. But
He can calculate a bit more.
Yeah, it's a different thing. And I think.
Do you find that you, in a certain way, that you're carrying this with you at times that perhaps you rather wouldn't? That it's sort of like you're at a resting openness, or like to say that your temperature doesn't change. I guess my question would be, say for instance, you have a scene where it requires, as our teacher would say, you to get your RPMs up because it's violent or extremely emotional. Yeah. Are you the 30 seconds before action? Are you starting where we are right now, and then it just through your prep comes out? Or you?
No, I'm starting from
high.
Yeah,
You're ready to go.
Yeah.
So you work it
I'm
up.
starting as after I leave the makeup trailer.
Yeah, you're building it.
Yeah.
How do you sustain it if you're holding for
like
2 hours?
It's like a song that if you're talking about a very particular emotion, let's talk about a very specific emotion rather than this kind of general thing.
Yes.
Okay. So if, let's say it's humiliation. And so you have to know that every human being that you meet in life, no matter who they are, is one step away from being humiliated.
Yeah. Smallest thing.
Smallest little thing.
Someone doesn't meet you for a high five.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So imagine how close that is to get in touch with.
Right. It's right there under the surface.
It's right there under the surface at all times. And there are, once you have done, relaxations and sense memories and affective memory. I don't do sense memories anymore because I do affective memories. But I do when I teach, I do them. But when I don't teach, I don't do them. But having done so many affective memories and continue to do them, it's almost like you have a file of facts of where to go, who to see, what to touch, that makes you feel humiliated.
Right.
Something that's maybe 7 or more years ago, but it's just like it happened fucking yesterday. The feeling, like you just said, of humiliation is so close. But what is it in your life that you can grab in your mind's eye and hold on to and put against your face in your mind's eye and let it just drench you in your own humility and your own humiliation. And so after doing this for a long time, you do that. That's what you do. And so you start I start in my dressing room, and I make sure that even if I have to talk out loud, I make sure, I just say, I'm open to anything. Like right now, I'm open to anything.
You're a vehicle.
Yeah. Like I could be slaughtered by a child right now. Like anything could happen. I want to be that open. I want to be so open in my heart and in my tummy, and I want to get out of my head. I just want to be in my heart and my tummy only.
Right.
That's it.
Do you find that certain memories that you've used, that you have access to, expire in the sense of that something that happened long ago that was ripe for the picking 5 years ago doesn't have the same effect that it does today?
If it's 7 or more years, it usually always stays the same.
Really?
Yeah. That's a Strasbourg thing. That may be a Klerman thing. I think it's a Strasbourg
Once
thing.
the pain is there, it stays. If it's rooted.
It's 7 or more, anything. It's best to explore events that have happened 7 or more years ago.
Right.
And use those now.
Because they're so deeply rooted.
Because they're so deeply rooted. It's rare when they'll change. Like when you're doing something like super intense. Let's continue with humiliation. So I'll find myself in my chair completely open, and then I'll just go to makeup completely open and completely like this with you. And
can you carry on small
talk? Yeah, of course. Yeah,
really.
Just do anything I want. Yeah, just like this. But I'm not in the affective memory. I'm just saying my heart and my tummy are open now.
Yes.
I'm totally relaxed and I'm open. I'm here to work. I'm going to lend my whole self to my job.
Right. But can you walk in and start?
Yeah.
at that point,
And talk about dogs? Yeah.
and crack jokes and
Yeah.
talk shit.
And Laurel and Yanni? Yeah.
Yeah, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do anything you want. And in fact, the more, the better.
Really
Yeah, because it keeps you
present.
exactly. So now the wrong thing to do would be to not have prepped yourself with, I'm completely open, I'm ready to accept anything. Because once you leave the dressing room and you know you're heading towards set, then you start as you're walking, I can do it on my walk from the dressing room or my trailer to set to my chair, from my chair to the set. I can, there are certain things that I can do in my body and the way that my posture is and what I can feel that open myself more and more and more so that and then I start to lay in the coin or the button or the piece of fabric or the person's face or her cheek against my cheek
Right.
and carry that through the whole scene and just speak through that only.
So and I guess my question too is, once you're sort of on your way into this place, it's when how do you sustain it for, if it's you're doing this scene for 4 or 5 hours? I mean, I feel like it can be a physical feat at
It
times.
is, yeah, because I think that actors are lazy by nature, and I think that,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that, and I think it's the last thing you want to fucking do is do it again,
Right.
But it is definitely a challenge if you're not going to reach. In other words, you've done it once. If you're going to do it again, then you have to go completely back to zero again and not reach for something that you just did.
Oh, but it felt so good. Right, but it's bullshit because it's
Yeah.
not real.
Then you might as well just fucking go home.
Right.
So if you think in your mind, okay, I don't want to fucking do this again. I wish the director would just leave me alone.
Right.
I'd like to go home now.
Right.
And you replace that with, okay, if I'm going to do this again, I have to go back to zero. And then you start doing the work again. You start opening yourself back up. You start seeing, you start to enter the effective memory. You can narrate yourself into it. I do that on sets all the time. You can ask people that work with me. I'll start narrating.
In character.
No, I'll start narrating if I'm doing an accent or a posture,
Right.
yeah, so it's in character, yeah. But I'll start narrating the effective memory out loud, even though it may not have anything to do with the scene.
So you're painting the picture for yourself? What
I'm
does that
getting
mean?
closer to it. Like I'll be saying like, no, I can't do that. Like, no, I won't do that. I'm sorry, I won't do that. You can't make me do that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You can't make me do it. I'm not going to do it. That's not mine. No, it's not mine. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And I will. And then as I can start to feel it. I can feel it now.
Right.
And then and so I feel a tingling in my hands, and I feel my posture change. And then you just let it go, and you just start speaking the character's words through that, and listening at the same time, and reacting at the same time to whatever else is going on.
I remember watching you teach, and it's part of the sense memory technique. But what I found fascinating, because it's just a guy was in a similar place where in the scene, he's dejected and he doesn't know what to do, and he's having such the dilemma, and you cut him off and you just said, voice a sound that represents the feeling.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he just let out this, and then all of a sudden you said, now just say the lines, but use the ugh.
Yeah.
And it just was like, and something about verbalizing that sound put this wave over him that dropped him in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It drops you in, yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's much, I mean, one of the most popular things these days is all these people are trying to emulate Daniel Day-Lewis,
Right.
There's all these, actors trying to do that. And Daniel Day-Lewis is a one-off. Like,
He's like the only one, right?
He's a one-off.
One of one.
Yeah. That is what he's found. and he's fucking brilliant at it.
But is it that my suspicion is, besides being inherently brilliantly gifted, is that no one is willing to work as hard as he does. Like, it's a direct benefit because of the insane amount of prep. I feel like he puts in more prep than anyone.
I think he does. I think he does. I think that it's something that he chooses. It's the only way he can do it, and he worked into that. He didn't always do that.
Really?
Yeah, and he found that if he wanted to, for him to be easier on himself as an artist,
Yes.
he had to do that.
So that he wasn't lamenting on set that something had been unexplored or that he missed something.
Yeah, yeah. So it comes down to the more you work, you put in, the happier you are when you walk away, because you say you've left it on the field. You left everything you had on the field.
Right.
I mean, it's you have to do that. You have to do that, and it's why I do what I'm talking to you about, because I know I have to go back to zero each time. It's the only way that I can do it again. I'm not gonna, I'll opt out if you ask me.
Right.
Because I don't want to fucking go through it again.
Of course.
And for me, it doesn't matter if you think it's great or not. It is what it is. It shouldn't be judged. It's just that it is. It's a performance. It's the best. It's the extent of my talent.
And and have you gotten over, like, because I'm working on getting over that whole thing of, like, that nailing it, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, you gotta
I killed it. I nailed it.
yeah.
It's all bullshit.
Well, it's all bullshit because it's something.
It's a projection.
It's other people's projection mostly.
Right. I remember listening to Steve Martin, and he said, if I have one great talent, it's obsession for the work. Like, I'm willing to just work at it. And so I've had great results from being able to work harder than most.
I mean, the harder you work, the better the job is.
Right.
Yeah, the better time you have doing it, and the more in you are. I mean, it's like a scene that's full of joy, like a scene that is like hysterically funny, but like, I mean, that the people are going through, their reaction to a situation is so almost to the point of like blissful. It's so funny,
right,
and entertaining for them. It's the same trip. It's except the other spectrum of emotion, but it's the same trip. You go fucking insane during it. Like you should come out of scenes like with other actors. Like stuff I did with Tilda Swinton, and I've done stuff with Sir Anthony Hopkins and like improvisations and stuff like that. And
right,
you come out of it and like you fucking look at each other like, what was that? That was fucking awesome fun.
Yeah, you're high.
Yeah. And so, but that's also comes from the same thing. Instead, you're bringing in something else other than humiliation. You're bringing in, it could be anything that you find hysterical. Like,
right,
nobody needs to know what it is, and something that you felt was so warm and fuzzy and hysterical at the same time, that came from whenever in your life, and you can still, as an adult man, enjoy it fully, and that will put you in the right place.
Do you find that you have moments in your real life where sort of the silver lining of being an artist and an actor, when you're going through great joy or maybe discomfort or sadness or loss, where there's just the slightest bit of you in the back of your head, you go, gotta save this. Gotta save it. I'm gonna use it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but what you're really doing is you're just celebrating the moment. I mean, like, even if because we're actors, we're saying, "Oh, I would like to use this sometime,"
right?
But as human beings, we're just celebrating the moment.
Yes.
As actors, we're like, "I'm going to use it because that's the way we celebrate the moment."
Right.
But so that's important. That happens all the time. Like it's so important. And I get things from women. I get things from my children. I get things from dogs and chimps and. It's like ridiculous. It's you become a master thief.
Right.
Every heartbeat is completely unique, and So as far as, this is like where the Stanislavski stuff that I learned. Before I studied method, I studied Stanislavski.
Did you just happen into great training like this, or did you seek it out early on?
I just happened into Stanislavski. There was a woman, Sonia Moore, who was an actual student of Stanislavski. She was 90 when she was teaching us.
Jeez.
Yeah, she used to bring in her carton of orange juice with half full of vodka.
Good for her.
Yeah, she was.
That's
awesome.
how I want to be at 90.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she beat this system of acting. This is the first 10 years of Stanislavski is basically what Harold Klerman and those guys turned into method. But he got tired of his actors being so indulgent, Stanislavski, and he started working with Boleslavsky and on physical stuff, animals, and using sculptures and so that you would create the posture, and if you're duplicating the posture, the emotion will come, which it does happen. It does work.
Right.
The problem with it is that it's theater. It works in theater.
Yeah, it's a different energy.
You can't do it in a film. But what you can do using what Stanislavski does teach you is it teaches you how important posture is, and how to alter yourself, how to put layers on yourself. In other words, never pretend, always talk within your own voice, but then layer it with character stuff. It's like juggling balls. You can juggle one ball to eventually you can get 3 or 4 balls in the air while the camera is rolling. That means accent, posture, reaction, acting, text,
Right.
All of it's going at the same time, and you know exactly what you're doing,
And I think that's, I find too, and I love watching film and TV through my wife's eyes, because she has a real affinity for realism. And so sometimes, like, the yummy things that I'll watch, certain performances that are lauded but are perhaps a bit theatrical, for lack of a better word, she won't find the same, she won't find as amazing as I do. But then she'll watch a great performance. It's so subtle and nuanced and probably required so much prep, and she'll say, now that's my kind of performance. And you see how much, as you said, when people are able to have 4, 5, 6 things going on at one time, and it's just a different thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's, if you look at, there's so many great actresses around, but if you look at all the greats, from like Maggie Smith to Meryl Streep to Joan Plowright to, it's just the list goes on and on and on. And then to all the more contemporary ones, younger, good ones that are out there, Jessica Chastain. I mean, they're doing that same kind of work.
Right.
They're juggling many balls at the same time. And if you've done that before and you've had practice doing that, you enjoy watching it so much, because you fluctuate from being told this story that has nothing to do with them,
Right.
to enjoying watching their craft.
What was the moment when you were a goner, when it clicked in for you? You were like, yep, this is me for the rest of my life.
When I saw the pretty girls that act.
Solid. Same here. and
then I think that got me into the auditions and stuff, to hang out with those crowds. And then I think when I don't know, I got Full Metal Jacket, right?
Right.
And I called Sharon once from England, and I would call her every once in a while and ask her, I'm 24 years old, and I'd ask her, like, this is what I'm doing, like, this is the work I'm doing, this is the nursery rhyme that I'm using, and this and that, and does this all sound, like I'm, on the right track? And she's definitely, she'd say, go to some museums and, watch documentaries on this and that, and she'd give me advice and stuff like that. And all she did, all those things were like her reminders of, remember, there's all these other things you can do. You know,
Right.
there's many things you can do to prepare for this part. It's not just you and the text.
And you sent tapes to audition for Full Metal Jacket, right?
Yeah.
How many tapes?
3. The first one, which was a monologue from a play I was doing at the time, and then
So nothing from the script. They just wanted to see you
the
act.
third one was he wrote. It wasn't from the script, but he wrote 2 pages of words with no punctuation, and he said, "Film it and send it back." Now you have to remember that back then the cameras were this fucking big, and you had to carry a deck,
Right.
You know, so it wasn't like an easy task for a 23-year-old.
Yeah, it wasn't a self-tape on your phone.
No, it was me and my buddy Steve Marshall, who, you know, we were both in a play at the time, but so we rented, you know, this fucking huge camera and set it up on 10th Avenue and 26th Street, and I sat on a stoop and we shot it, and you know, we shot him.
You did it outside.
Yeah.
And was that a Kubrick thing where he would have you just read from a play first, like nothing from the script, or it just happened to be?
No,
for you?
they said send a tape of something, so I just sent it. I just figured what, you know.
And then what's the feedback from your first tape? Send another one?
So about 3 or 4 weeks passed, and then he called me directly, and
Are you bugging out? Are you like, oh my
well,
God, it's the
I
dude?
immediately hung up on them. I had no.
Really?
Yeah, because at the time.
Hello, Vincent.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
No, he's not British, you know.
But
he's,
like.
he's a Jew from the Bronx. This which completely threw me off because I thought that he was British.
Right.
And so this is what happened. I at the time was a bouncer. You know, I was a bodyguard and a bouncer when I was that age, and I used to bodyguard for rock stars and other actors. You know,
Right.
Danny. Aykroyd and many people, and but all the bodyguards I worked with were cops and firemen, and they were all moonlighting and stuff, and we were all close, and they would fuck with me all the time. So I
Right.
thought, and they knew everything that I was up to because they knew I was the only actor of the bunch.
Our bodyguard actor.
So I get this call, and they, you know,
You're like,
it's
"That's
just them.
Aykroyd."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
No.
Aykroyd, but one of the
Yeah.
bouncer, one of your
buddies.
bodyguards. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck you, you know, like that. And then they immediately called back, and it was Leon Vitale, was his right-hand man. And then, you know, Stanley gets on the phone, and he says, I want you to just, he said, this is, it's going to be tough. Can you put on 10 pounds and then take your shirt off and sit on the same stoop outside and just talk about yourself for a bit, where you're from and stuff like that.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I said, yeah, okay.
And at this time, are you pretty lean? Like, are you?
Yeah, I was like super, super thin. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I was like, yeah.
Yo, guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. Look, I'm going to make this quick, and we're going to get right back to the podcast. Because, look, I mean, I wouldn't let you down. Uncle Josh doesn't do that to you. You know what I mean? I make a promise, I keep it. So let's go. Did you know that every single episode of Curious is now on Spotify? Yeah. The same app that has millions of songs now also has thousands of podcasts. Look, on Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite shows and discover new ones. Just not too many. I get jealous. But look, all you got to do is subscribe to our show, search for Curious, tap follow, and get every new episode delivered to you. Podcasts on Spotify, they're streaming right now, and now, and now. Let's get back to the show. So what, you hit the donuts? What are we doing? Pasta every night?
Yeah, pasta. And,
Strong.
Pasta, yeah. And beer, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
It's a
drink
good
it and have
recipe.
some. Yeah.
Love it.
Hash and anything I could put in my mouth, you know.
Perfect.
After that. And so we did that, and then he, about 2 weeks later, he said I'm gonna send you some words, and so then about 2 weeks after that, he sent these words, and I this time we did it in the backyard of this. I was in Jersey City. I had an apartment in Jersey City, and we did it up against this chain link fence, because I could tell it was in fact, you could tell it was a Marine Corps training thing.
Right.
So I just did it at attention against this, you know, chain link fence. And but Steve did the off-camera stuff, and I just did the on-camera stuff, and we just did it. And then I got it.
And so,
And but there's one piece of the story missing, is that Matthew Modine, who I knew from school and from auditions, we used to help each other with lines in the Central Park and stuff. He had got the job already, and I was doing the front door at the Hard Rock Cafe when it used to be on 57th Street, and he was walking by with his wife one day, and I said, "Hey man, what's up?" And we started talking. He said, "Oh, by the way, there's this one part that's not cast. You should send it." So Matthew's the one that got me the address to send it to.
jeez.
I didn't have an agent.
And he immediately wants you to gain weight, right?
Yeah,
How much?
30 pounds. And then when I gained the 30 pounds, I just looked like I could kick everybody's ass. And so I had to put on eventually almost 80 pounds, just about 80 pounds.
Was that the worst or the
It was the
best?
worst.
It was the worst, right?
Yeah, my girl left me.
Because you're eating at night. I mean, you got to be.
Yeah,
It's a full-time
I
job.
I was not in a good headspace.
And I mean, at that time, does it? I mean,
But it was free food because I think I had a Warner Brothers credit card, and I had a flat in London, and dude, it was like amazing.
no better food city, really.
I mean, if
Nah.
you want to gain weight,
Right.
like that's
Yeah,
the
shepherd's
place.
pie and
yeah,
shit.
all that shit, potatoes and cheese and
And at
dairy.
And at this time, Kubrick's like anointed, right? Like there's very few. I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore at that
yeah.
time. So is that intimidating? Are you like, fuck, like my first big gig?
No, he was very nice to me. I went and I saw him in the distance. They were shooting the Vietnam stuff first, and I saw him in the distance. I saw him, and I didn't know about monitors, and he was like one of the first guys to use a monitor to watch playback.
Yeah.
And back then the monitors were like about that big, maybe about like that big, but they
Small.
were super long, because they had all this stuff.
Technology behind it, right?
And they had television tubes and back then,
Yeah,
still.
it's real shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's sitting, and I see him, and I go up to the first, and I say, "Can I meet him?" And when I said that, he turned and he looked at me, and he waved me over, and he introduced himself, and he said, "Sit down, watch this with me." And so I did, and he would tell me ask me what I thought, and should we do it again? And I'm like, "Oh, well, yeah, do it
Jeez,
again."
you're like,
I was
I'm a bodyguard for the Hard Rock Hotel.
Yeah, exactly.
like
I'm
the
like-
Hard Rock restaurant.
Yeah. And he was so nice to me that he goes, he never talked to me about story. He never talked to me about performance.
He wouldn't note you.
No, he would just
Just
say,
let
do
you-
it better. All of us, he would just say, do it better, or do it faster, or you missed your mark and stuff like that. He would say, you guys got to do better than that.
Do you prefer that kind of note, like
I
that kind of
prefer
direction?
both. I can do both. I can do actor. The only thing that I don't like is metaphors.
Gotcha.
But
Oh man, I feel like if I was directing and I was lucky enough to have you in a scene, I'd be like, I gotta relate something. I know, I'll use a metaphor. I'd be that asshole. I'd be like, fuck.
I think that a metaphor is a clear sign that the director doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Right.
But the ones that talk about story, and the ones that talk about heart, and the ones that just need it great, I'm into all of that. Like I'll talk, I don't really do a lot of talking, but I like to be directed a lot. Like
Really?
Yeah. Like I like a director to come up and say something in my ear, uninvited, come up and say something that will change the scene for me, or even if they want to yell it across the room, like, "Vincent, you can't do that. You have to do this." I'll be like, "Okay," like I'm there. Like I love it. It's because if you don't fucking get my attention, I want to go home. Like my attention span is so short.
Right.
That if I feel like I can deliver everything in a couple of takes, and then the thing is over. And meanwhile, the director she or he may think that I'm not even close, and we have many more takes to do. So,
But they haven't articulated it.
but they haven't articulated, so they better articulate it.
But then again, if there was like someone of the Clint Eastwood school who can get it in 3 takes and be happy and it looks
I'll
good,
go home.
you're stoked.
I'll go home and not look back once.
And so And what about reassurance? Like, do you want to be told after, like, that was
No.
great? You
I don't.
just
I mean,
leave it alone.
I don't not want to be told. I
Right.
just
Who doesn't like that?
yeah.
Right.
Like if somebody said, "Wow, that was great," I would think, "Awesome," because in the way they're going like that.
Right.
And unless you do theater, you never get this. So
Right.
yeah, it's nice.
But you hear, like, I was listening to Josh Brolin on a pod the other day talking about the Coen brothers and how he just said they give you nothing.
They give you nothing. Yeah.
Nothing.
My editor that I'm working with is the Coen brothers editor. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. Paul Schrader is like that. Paul would say to Ethan, "Do you think you can do better than that? Because if you can't, we're done."
Wow.
And Ethan would go, "No," or "Yeah, give me another one."
And I feel like it's a pretty clear, if you've done the work, it's a pretty clear decision. Like, yeah, there is something there, or no,
Right.
I've
Those
put it
kind
out.
of directors that we're talking about right now
Yes.
are the ones that will fire you if you suck.
Which is almost better, right?
Right? Yeah.
I mean, sometimes this is so wrong because it's my responsibility, which I've learned more and more with doing more work with people like Sharon. But I've watched certain takes of scenes that have made it to the final cut and thought, what were you thinking? Why didn't you tell me? Like, why didn't you say anything? I'm like, oh, how could you, like, just the slightest adjustment of like, don't do that. And I would have been like, gotcha. Thanks for looking out,
I know it's crazy. That's their job, But a lot of directors don't want to get in the way of actors because sometimes actors don't want them to, So
Right.
you know how it is. Crews are taught not to put their hand in the cage, in
Right.
our cages, and so it gets like that. But and directors sometimes feel a little weary of that. So I make it clear to the guys and girls that I'm working with that they can say anything to me at any time, and I will never, I even to the continuity girl or guy that's on set, man or woman, I'll come over as much as you want. Speak the line out to me as much as you want. I will never diss you for it.
It's the one thing I love about comedy in the sense of there's a meritocracy to it. And I remember Colin Quinn said, it's the closest thing to justice in the sense that funny is funny. And if people don't laugh, it ain't funny. There's no interpretation.
Yeah.
So whether it's the highest paid writer or a really funny craft service guy, if somebody's got a great idea and it makes everyone laugh, like, let's try it.
Yeah.
Because what are we going to be precious about it?
I was doing this scene. I do this character, Wilson Fisk, on Daredevil, and he's like a Marvel baddie, but he's an emotional baddie. He's not like a typical gangster. He's emotionally, everything that he does comes from his humility that he carries around. And Deborah Ann Wall, who's a wonderful actress, actress, we had a scene together. It was like a 5-page scene, just the two of us, and we don't like each other. And to me, to my character, she's just a little piece of chicken, and her point of view of me is that I'm just an absolute fucking monster and I belong either dead or in jail. And if she has to kill me, she will, kind of a thing.
Right.
And even at the risk of her own life. And like you're saying with the justice thing, with the comedy, is the same thing happens with drama, in that when we were doing that scene with the director's input, with the DP's input, with everybody, props guys and continuity, keeping us on track, and when we would do setups and we would leave the set and come back, you felt like they left the tone of the set exactly the same for us when we got back.
Right.
It was like justice.
Yes.
The feeling of that's what we're here for. That's what we accomplish. That's what we get. That's our justice. That this scene is going to exist until we're done with it.
Yes.
That there was nothing in the air before we started, and now the air is thick with story.
Yeah. You're ready to go.
Yeah, and
When
you can only do that with somebody as good as her. Like, honestly, it's
rare.
yeah.
Do you, assuming that all the actors have done the prep that's required and everyone's shown up to work, and then for whatever reason, the scene is off. It's revealed itself now. You're, 3 takes into the master, and you're just like, something ain't right here. What do you think? What do you think that is?
Well, that's something that needs to be fixed. That's what that is.
But does it tend to be? Is there something off in the script? Is it that
It could
the
be
way
the
it's been
script.
blocked?
It could be the script. Most likely, it's the blocking.
Right. That
Most
feels
likely, it's the blocking.
artificial.
Yeah. Or the beginning of the scene is starting in the wrong place.
Right.
And so that's the first thing the first thing is the blocking during rehearsal, because in a play that's one thing, in a film it's something else. The blocking is combined with shot design and the drama of the storytelling.
Yes.
Right. So those two things have to meet. And you can start in many ways. Like you can have the actors block it themselves, and you help them along, and then you establish your shots and move them a little here and move them a little there,
Right.
to find your shots. Or if you have a storyboard, you tell the actors, this is the shot. So in other words, this is your stage. You have to perform within that.
What do you prefer?
They're both
way.
so exciting to me.
Yes.
To do. I mean, I love design shots. I also loved inventing blocking. On my show that I did on television, I would do all the blocking.
Yes.
Like I would block every fucking scene. Like the directors would just sit by, and I would block every scene that I was in.
So when you do something like Law and Order and procedurals in that manner for, many, many, many seasons, is that the way you keep it fresh and
Yeah.
new, is by challenging yourself
Because I
in
never
that way?
changed the word of the script. I made a deal with the writers early on that I would never rewrite a thing.
Was that on their request, or it was just
No, yeah, I was
agreement?
told that the first, I don't know how it just stayed our routine, but the first writer on that show, Rene Balsay, who's a great crime story writer, probably one of the best we have in America, and he was very clear that he doesn't like to change things, but up until it gets published. So in other words, he's happy for me to come to his office, discuss this with him, discuss that.
Yes.
And a lot of times I would say, I don't understand what are you saying by this? And he would say, well, I'm saying this and this and this. I would say, well, then write that instead. Yes. And he would do it. But then once it's published and we have then we have the read through, and then any notes after the read through, that's where it ends. Then you never change a word on set after that.
I think that's weirdly freeing too, because I've worked with certain actors who, for better or for worse, they wanted to rework it the day of when we got to, and I was like, but we're on a ticking clock here.
That's a television show.
Right,
television. It's a television show.
Yes.
It has to be done that way. You cannot hold up the day, And so, because I never changed the word, the blocking to me was everything. You could change the whole dynamic of a scene with it, So it was very important. Now on films, it's different. On films, every project is different. So if you're coming in with a writer-director, then it's that writer-director. He's the boss. He's like a showrunner and a director at the same time. And all changing of any dialogue are discussions with him, and I think that should be done as early on as possible. Other actors feel differently than me, but I feel like get that done so that when you're on set, you just have to think about acting, and you'll rely on him or her, the director, to showrun you and direct you, and you don't have to think about that.
Yes.
Now, when you're working with directors that are on a big project, but they didn't write it, but they have this vision, then for me, it's up for grabs. Like Ethan and I will sit in our trailers and we'll rewrite scenes and we'll rewrite other people's scenes, and, and the directors love it. They're fucking like, yeah, fucking do that. Or no way, I'm not going to put that in my movie.
Right.
It's like, get out of here. What are you, crazy? Or like, fuck yeah, let's do that,
Yeah, you're freer to...
Yeah, and if you have a good relationship, if you don't have a good relationship, if there's an actor who you can't get, who's got his head up his ass or her ass,
their own agenda,
then you just leave them alone. But if everybody works as a team, which is the idea when you do a film.
Well, you hear that about, like, Downey is the king of that. Downey, because I never met him, but I abbreviate his name. Yeah. But like there were stories of him on Iron Man just would show up and sit in his trailer and throw away the sides and go, all right, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And then would rewrite it, and Favreau, being
Yeah.
the smart filmmaker he is, would say, all right,
Yeah.
we'll make it
yeah.
work.
I think Downey's fucking excellent at that. You know, we would do that on The Judge when we did The Judge together. And I would also say, so what about, I would say, okay, I'm gonna say this here. He's go do it. So I would do it. He goes, and then he would say, no, wait. And the director is there.
Right.
And he goes, no, but try this instead. And then I would do it that way. And everyone's going to think, and I go, well, I think I'm going to back up a little bit and do both of them, actually. And then I would do them both. And he goes, okay, well, this is fucking working now. You know, right. But never have I worked with anybody as close in that kind of situation as I have with Ethan. Because Ethan is, I mean, I think I'm a pretty good writer. Robert's a good writer. Ethan's a great writer. Right. And he can, the two of us can figure a scene out like wildfire, especially if we're in it and we're acting in it ourselves, and we're in the movie a couple of weeks, like we're feeling the movie by now.
You know the guys, you're ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, there are, I won't name projects or directors, but I mean, it's again and again, the material that we've written, when I see his performances, I know that he's written whole scenes himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you do when and I feel like we've all had this experience where all the intentions are great and it all seems good on paper, and then you show up on the day or something's revealed early on or halfway through where you're like, this director doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
What do you do? How do you protect your ass?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you're in trouble.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, you're in trouble. So you have to know that you have to stop acting like an actor, and you have to start acting like somebody who is a protector of the script, a knight. The script has a knight in shining armor to protect it, and you become this kind of advocate for the script. And that's the only clean and honest way out of a situation like that, without making anybody feel bad or hating the director so bad you want to kill them.
Right.
And just let the chips fall the way they do. I mean, there's really nothing you can do.
Does it change your performance at all?
It will change your performance.
You're less willing to take risks, right? Because you don't trust their taste. I mean, I'm only speaking for me, but I've found that when I've truly trusted someone, I've been willing to have one of those takes that probably was a bit too far one way or the other, knowing that the one after that would be dialed in, but I needed the one before to get there.
Well, that's maybe because you care too much about
Probably.
I think it might be because you care too much about what people think.
Definitely.
Okay. So that's the first thing that you got to just get rid of.
Yes.
If you become the guardian of the script, then you approach the director and you say, look, this is the story that's being told here. This is what I'm going to do. Like, this is what has to be done. If you want me to sit over there and do it, I'll do that. If you want me to stand on my head, I'll do that. If you want me to be angry, I'll do that. Anything you want, I'll figure out a way to do it. But as long as we do not deviate from the story that we're telling.
Yes.
And if what they're saying to you actually, like for real, clips the story in some way or denigrates the story in some way, then you just have to put your blinders on and you have to just do it. And then they say, well, no, that's not what I was thinking. You say, oh, well, what were you thinking? And then they tell you, and then you just do it again.
Right.
You have to not care what
they're
going to think.
Now, and
But that's so rare.
Right.
But it does happen. You're right. You're in trouble when that happens. By the way, they're in trouble too. Like everybody's in trouble.
By the way, they're probably in more trouble.
More trouble, yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
And just to go back to Kubrick for 1 second, you hear stories about him in, like on The Shining, and how he coaxed performances out of Nicholson, and more so, Shelley. And did you see any of that when you were doing it? No.
No.
He just was totally affable and.
Yeah, I mean, he would get pissed at actors for not knowing their lines. I mean, there was one actor that fucked up pretty bad one day. There was also another actor which I would have never expected to fuck up, did, and he got his ass handed to him.
Wow.
for not knowing his fucking dialogue. And it was a lot of dialogue, I granted, but we had weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, to learn it.
Yes.
So he had no excuse other than oops, But no, nobody on that show needed a performance coaxed out of them. Everybody was young and ready, and we came from a generation of actors before us that were fucking hot,
Right.
and we wanted to be the next generation. Like, you could not fuck with us. Like, there was not a lot of us either, as many as there are now.
Yeah, you were ready to go.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, because you work with Robert Altman and, I mean, like the greats, the truly great directors, is there a through line that you have noticed or one or two traits that they all possess that you think leads to their greatness or why they are so good at what they do?
I guess it's they've been allowed somehow, or they're somehow figured out a way to do things the way that they do them and not anybody else. That they've figured out somehow to get away with it, to be able to tell stories the way they want to, not the way they've seen other people do it, and that people trust them to do that. That's tough, man. That's hard to do.
Yes.
You have to be, you have to have thick skin, and you can't, you have to have good scripts and good, and luck to get that. Because those two guys that you're talking about, Kubrick and even Oliver Stone and guys like that, they're all very unique human beings, and they do not make films similar to each other. Like their approach to filmmaking is completely them.
Yes.
Like Altman was completely different than anybody had ever worked with before, as most are. He would walk around set with a half a joint in his pocket, and I would always make sure that I was near him at the end of the day so I could have his joint that he didn't finish. And,
yeah, cool down after a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was, had a very different approach, than these other guys. So I think there's just the idea of them being able to get in that position. It makes them completely unique, and I think it helps their storytelling a lot because it's coming from their own shit.
Yes. The great experiences that I've had with a director, I found that it's kind of parental to me in a sense of like where I felt safe enough to try the things that I wanted to try. And yet I knew that there was a governing force behind me that if I went too far left or too far right, that they would just sort of rein me in, that I was like being protected, and like a parent would wants their kid to have experiences and feel emboldened to try things,
right.
But inevitably they're going to make sure that they don't burn their hand or get caught.
Right.
And so there was like sort of an ease about it where I knew that if I had a better idea or something revealed itself, that we were going to honor that. But no matter what, they had a plan and we were going to stick to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a good director. Yeah. It's, they're everything. I mean, I think that writing is everything.
It's everything.
And so, but when the writer is gone, and you're making a movie and a play, those first few weeks, man, you're really relying on their direction.
Right.
A lot.
I want you to, I've quoted you now a few times, even on the podcast and to friends. So I want to tell you the quote so you can correct me so I don't plagiarize you incorrectly. When I watched you teach in class, something you said that was such an aha moment for me was you said, there is a hook to every scene. There's an intent, a clear action for you as your character. Your job is to find it. And inherently great writing makes it hard to find because it's in subtext and nuance and in action and things that you really have to analyze to find it. But it's there. And we're the detectives. It's our job to find it.
Yeah.
And for me, that's been so revealing because I'm grandiose and I watch great performances or someone who just reads text and I go, why can't I find it immediately? Why doesn't it just
you can't
leap
find
out?
it immediately.
Right.
Yeah. No, the way to it or one of the ways to it, is to just keep asking why. Why am I saying that? Why are they saying this? Like, why? For what? Why am I saying this now? Like, why don't I say this sooner? Or why do I wait and say that? Why? Like, and try and answer that question. Like, don't pass it over. Try
Yes.
to ask each and every why question and try and answer it. And that will take you so close to text
Yes.
that you'll bump into the hook.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll only keep you for a few more minutes. Quickly, one thing, I don't think you get enough credit for this performance, and maybe you do, but I think because it was sort of a big action movie, people didn't really give you all the props for Men in Black, because that is a fucking incredible performance of like deep character work and a transformation of what you did for that movie. I mean, will you just give me like the quick 30 to 60 seconds of what that process was like?
The process was I had to figure it out. Sonnenfeld wouldn't let me talk about acting. Before he hired me for the job, he made me promise I wasn't going to talk to him about acting during the.
Why?
Because that's the way he is. He's
Okay.
awesome. He's awesome, by the way.
Yes.
I just saw him recently. He's exactly the same way he was when we were working together. He's like, he wanted me to come in and do a thing for that TV show that he does now, the Netflix thing. He does the series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he wanted me to come in and do something, the final episode of that, but I couldn't because I was doing this other thing. But anyway, so I love him to death. But no, I did actually have to agree to that we were not going to speak about acting. So I had to go off and invent this alien guy, this alien that took over this body. And so, I started watching all these bug documentaries and stuff, and they were just so boring I almost killed myself. And then I was walking by a sporting goods store, and I saw these two basketball knee braces. And I immediately went in and I bought them, and I bought some masking tape some duct tape at the hardware store, and I bent them and duct taped them off so that I couldn't move my legs. So my legs were always bent. And I just started to walk normal, and that's how I came up with the walk. And then
Cool.
The voice is George C. Scott and John Huston's voice combined.
Cool.
Yeah. And
Just because it sounded right to you when you did it?
If you ever watch Dr. Strangelove, George C. Scott's performance is like, when you watch it now, it's like, what the fuck is he doing? It's like crazy, over the top weirdness. But he has this voice that he talks like this all the time, like that.
Right.
And John Huston has a voice which, for whatever, pawn skull.
Right.
And it couldn't be that languid. So I combined the two so that I could say pawn skull but it's pawn skull.
Right.
So I can always feel them inside me, the imitation of voices, two of them.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the rest was just riffing all the time.
And when you showed up on set with all this prep,
he was totally freaked out by it.
What about like Will and
cleared
Tommy
the
Lee
set.
Jones? Were they like,
They
oh
never
shit?
spoke to me.
Really?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I couldn't see them because I had these back then. They hadn't completely figured out the whole contact lens thing. So when
Yes.
they colored your eyes, you really couldn't fucking see.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, but they were nice to me, and they were both very nice to me and stuff. And since the movie, Will and I have talked about it and stuff. But my scenes were very kind of, different from other scenes. Like when it was the bug day, we would just do that.
Right.
And they would come in and out of it, but we'd never, cross paths really.
Yeah,
Not
you
very
guys
much.
weren't hanging out at the snack table.
No, I was in makeup for 9 hours a day.
9 hours?
Yeah, and then I would work for
Jesus.
3 hours and go home.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but it was intense. It was fun.
And now that you've been directing for a while, and you recently wrapped a film that you're finishing now, what has, as a director, what has I guess my question is, like, Have you learned something new about acting, or has it revealed itself in other people's performances as you being sort of the captain of the ship now? Or is it sort of all the same?
No, it's not all the same. It's not really like, I don't really think of it that way though. This is how I think about it. I think like, so I'll watch people doing things and I think, wow, you know, like this is where we are. Like this is what we are accepting these days. Like this is not good.
Really?
And so, yeah, like
Yeah.
I see that on television sets too. And
Because it's just conversational.
it's just not fucking interesting. And
Right.
you know, and it's not coming from anything real. It's just really good pretending.
Yes.
You know, which is great, I guess. But
Sounds
it's not
natural.
something that I want to direct. I don't want to direct really good pretending. I want to direct really great acting.
Right.
You know, so as a director, like directors did with me, I try to influence them before, during, and after each particular scene, and sometimes before the shoot even. Try to influence them in ways that they won't forget.
Right.
You know, and I find that actors that age from like kids to like my age, that if you're open and honest with them and fair-minded with them and make them understand that you love them because we are the same,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And we are the herd.
We're all in it together.
Yes. And if you can establish that and hold their hands, like literally take their hands in your hands and hold their hands and make them understand that you're there with them, then, you know, they're going to listen to you. They're going to accept what you have to give them. And so with Ethan Hawke and Chris Pratt and Dane DeHaan and Jake Schur, you know, I was able to approach every actor, no matter what their ability was, in exactly the same way. I could talk through them. I could talk through scenes with them while they were acting. I could talk to them while they were acting.
Right.
You know, and so that, because we had 20 days to shoot a big Western, and we trusted each other so much that I was able to speak to them while the camera was rolling, while they were in the scene, and it's just becomes this. Every day you show up at work, you know, and you're just in this thing, this story that you want to tell.
Yes.
And you want to tell it emotionally and in an entertaining way, and everybody just you know, so everybody's holding hands all the way through it. I know this might sound mushy and stuff like that, but you're actually, while the camera's rolling, you are inventing story like a motherfucker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's so right on, and it speaks to the whole parenting thing that we were saying before. Is like, anytime that I've had a great experience working with a filmmaker, I believe they were a fan of mine. Like, and not at a superficial level, like they wanted me to win. They liked when I tried things, and
Yeah.
and so to your point, and obviously that's my own stuff to work on, which added to the list of like not being overly worried about what people think and getting validation that way. But yeah, you feel like, God, this guy wants me to win, and I want to win for him.
I mean, if you can compartmentalize, like, I honestly believe that if you keep your heart open for your wife and your children, if you keep your heart open for your family, if you keep your heart open and your mind open for society and humanity, be a motherfucker when you're an actor.
Right.
If you're an asshole during all those other aspects, then fuck you anyway.
Yes.
Okay? But if you can give your life to everybody in it as much as you would hope they would give it to you, in your acting, you have to be steadfast. You have to be unencourageable. You have to be a fucking giant. You have to be. You are a storyteller. You have the right to do that. Nobody can take that away from you. You have this innate right at birth to tell stories if you choose to. And you need to be a motherfucker when you do it. And you only let the good ideas in. And you have to trust that you know what they are.
That's it. Mic drop. Can't thank you enough, man. This was awesome. So appreciate you.
No problem, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That was it. That was Vincent Donofrio. Dude, thank you. Thank you. What an honor it was to be able to sit with him for an hour and just soak it up. You know what I mean? This is why I do this, to talk to people like him, to get those treasure gems I was talking about in the intro, those mental treasure gems that just make me want to be a better actor and make me want to put in the work. Pretty special, really special. Anyway, guys, Jesus, have an incredible weekend. I'll see you the week after, every Tuesday, Curious Podcast. What are you doing right now? Are you on your commute? I know I say that every week, so what's up? What, are you keeping track? What, are you proud of yourself? Listen, you in your car? I like to eat in my car. Yeah, getting real honest here. I eat in my car, and there are crumbs everywhere. But you know what? So what, right? Fuck it. What am I going to do? I'm driving. There are very few pleasures that we have in life, like true pleasures. And I get within that confined little automotive box of mine, you know, with the glass windows where you can actually see everything I'm doing. But so what? I feel alone and private. And I drive and I eat some sort of, listen, it doesn't have to be, by the way, like a car-safe food, like a French fry or a chicken tender. I'll eat a salad in the car. I'll have utensils out, driving with my knees, pouring dressing on the salad, eating. Why not? You know, listen, that's not safe. And I don't want to publicize that, perpetuate it. You know what I mean? But look, sometimes you got to eat salad and drive on Santa Monica Boulevard while listening to Mark Maron or Joe Rogan. I'm really into the Lance Armstrong podcast as of recently. Go listen to that. That's good shit. He's a very smart guy. And also, I think he got a fucking raw deal. But nevertheless. All right, guys. Have a great week. What else? I want to leave you with something important. Oh, I got it. As you are enough. Mic drop.